morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's a Thursday edition of the program. We got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to have head coach of the Gator softball team, Tim Walton, join us. Second half of the portion of the program, we're going to have former offensive lineman for the Gators, Shannon Snell. We got some good news from the governor yesterday. Looks like the state of Florida is going to be gradually opening up, and businesses are going to be opening up, all that good stuff. But let's get straight to the Titan MR hotline, and we're going to be joined by head softball coach Tim Walton. Tim, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Shane. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Tim, I know you personally. You're a very organized human being. You know what you're going to be doing every minute of every day. What in the world's Tim Walton doing right now?
Well, I jokingly tell people that I talk to that I'm the busiest person with nothing to do that I've ever met. So, I've done my taxes. I've reorganized closets. I reorganized my shoes in numerical order and colors. And so I'm running out of things to do, to be honest with you, Shane. It's one of those things that you're not prepared for this, but we're able to spend some good quality time as a family, and but ultimately it's been very, very different. Something I've never done before. That's for sure.
Yeah. Before we dive into what happened this year and all that stuff, I'd like a lot of our listeners who may not know your story. You're one of maybe the only guy, I'm not sure, but you won a national title as a baseball player in the College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska for the Oklahoma Sooners as a pitcher. And then obviously you've won 2 national titles as a coach. What got you into coaching softball?
Well, I think when I left professional baseball, I had an opportunity to coach baseball at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And when I started coaching there, I first went in as more like a graduate person, a graduate coach, a graduate assistant. And I actually had to go back now and figure out what my title was. I guess it was strength and conditioning coordinator if we went back to it. But long story short, I met my wife there my first year at Oral Roberts, and we were married a year later. And it's part of that that process, putting food on the table. And I had an opportunity to come up in softball, something I never thought I would ever do. And to this day, it's been one of the best moves I've ever made as far as professionally. And so getting into softball, I had a good opportunity back at my alma mater at Oklahoma. I left Oral Roberts. My wife and I, were married apart for some time until she finished up her schooling and some other stuff. And I've been coaching now. I just finished my 15th year at Florida. And I guess I coached 4 years at Oklahoma and 3 at Wichita State. So I'm getting ready to start my 23rd year in softball next year. So it's been a long and a very, very prosperous journey, and something I've been very fortunate to have.
Yeah, so let's jump ahead now. As you mentioned, you've been here at Florida for quite some time, won a ton of games, 2 national titles, a lot of SEC titles. So tell me, what happened the week whenever they canceled everything? Because it kind of, they suspended a game, and then the next day they canceled it. And just kind of chronologically tell us how that happened.
Yeah. So one of the things that, as we started into the first parts of March, we get into SEC play. And so once we got to that point, and I believe chronologically our weekend series with Auburn was the 6th, 7th, and 8th of March. And so prior to that, the 5th, I reached out to the league, and, with all the stuff that was going on in New York and some other places, we reached out to the league and came up with a decent proposal that, maybe we shouldn't shake hands after our games, our teams, our coaches, just try to minimize any opportunity to, engage people with, whether it be handshakes or, just at close proximity. So long story short, that was the weekend, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and, the 7th, 8th, and the 6th, 7th, and 8th of March. That Tuesday, which is a rare thing for us, we played Penn, and they were on their spring break. We played Penn on the 10th, which was a Tuesday. They were going back, and their conference in the Ivy League had already started to put some things in place in regards to their limitations of fans and their stands. talked to their coach. The next day, the 11th, the Ivy League had canceled their entire season. So we were kind of talking, and, oh, man, that's terrible. You know, the last game that Penn played was at the University of Florida. And we played Florida State that night on the 11th. We beat Florida State. I had a meeting before that game, and then that meeting was basically, Scott Strickland said, for not necessarily the remainder of our season, but we're going to be playing our weekend series this weekend, non-conference against Baylor, with no fans in the stands. And that was on the 11th. And by the 12th, you know, we were pretty much where our season is halted. And by the 13th, I had a meeting with my team at 1 p.m. and our season was well, according to the SEC, it was suspended. So we were suspended, but we all knew that it was going to be canceled. It was just a matter of time for that. But ultimately, our season was suspended on March 13th. And one of the toughest conversations I think I've ever had with my team, having to look them in the eyes and telling them that, you know, the president of our university, President Fox, says he recommends that all of you go home. And so I'm basically giving you my, you know, I'm going to second that. Say, hey, go home, be with the people you love, be around the people that you care about. And, you know, I think ultimately you make the best decision for you right now. The team's going to be fine. The program's going to be fine, but just head home or wherever you want to be.
Yeah, I can't imagine that conversation, especially, you know, these girls, they strive to get to Oklahoma City, and that's pretty much a given, you know, with you being the coach here, getting there, you know, the end of May, first part of June for the College World Series. What did you like about this team you had this year, Tim?
You know, it's funny. You know, I had to answer all the questions in the preseason, going from last summer to to how are you going to replace Amanda Lorenz and Kelly Barnhill? Well, obviously Amanda is you know, next to impossible to replace somebody like her on and off the field. But she was with us, you know, in regards to our staff, and we were going to get to have a chance to be around her without having her, you know, her bat in the lineup. And Kelly was obviously going to be a blow that we were not going to be able to overcome. When I sat down with ESPN last year, I talked to them. They were really concerned about the number of innings Kelly pitched and was pitching. And I said, listen, Kelly Barnhill has been trained and groomed for this. I'm not worried about Kelly Barnhill pitching us through the remainder of the season and being good or, you know, being healthy. I'm worried about the Florida Gators next year because we're leaning on her so heavy that I'm not giving some younger players an opportunity to go out there and, you know, and kind of earn, you know, their way. And so I really liked the way our pitching staff and Mike Bosch and our pitchers and our catchers had really come together. And one of the things 2 weeks before the season started, I told our pitchers that, listen, I want you guys to be mentally and physically prepared to pitch in every single game. And they looked at me like, yeah, right, you've heard that before. And I said, no, listen, I'm telling you, if one of you is not ready to pitch in a game and you say, well, I didn't really know I was going to go in that game, I'm telling you now, be ready. And our last game, you know, the last W of the Florida Gator 2019-20 academic year, the Florida Gator softball team beat Florida State. And the number of pitchers I pitched in that game will just show you what I thought. They really did a good job. And we didn't have enough star power or enough, you know, to pitch one pitcher throughout the entire game, but we made adjustments and we figured out how to win in a different way. And I was really proud of our players, our pitchers, our catchers, our pitching coach, Mike Bosch, but our team in general. They had a strong bond that you could tell. I mean, I think we finished the season at 23-4, and the bond that they had and the love they had for each other was really strong. And it's something that you can't measure when you get ready to start a season of upcoming seasons. What are you looking forward to the season? Well, I hope our team has a bond like they shared last year, because that equals a lot of W's.
Absolutely. We're speaking with head softball coach Tim Walton on the Titan MR hotline from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. So we got a text here on the Titan MR text line for Tim. It says, Coach, and it comes from Larry. He wants to know, have you ever thought about or wanted to coach college baseball?
You know, I've had a couple opportunities to coach baseball once I started coaching softball. And, you know, my second year coaching softball, I was an assistant coach in Oklahoma, and we won the national championship in 2000 against UCLA. And I can tell you, just looking in the eyes of your players, that coaching males and coaching females, there's no difference in competitor. The competitor is the same. they both want to win equally. The thing that a female student athlete has that I haven't been around a lot of males that have it is their passion to play the game is so different. They're not playing for scouts. They're not playing for money. They're playing for love. And so that was really hard for me, to be honest with you, to walk away from, to go coach baseball. I thought long and hard about it, but I really enjoy the life that I've created, the program that I've built here at Florida, and being a Gator has been something really special. So Larry, I think to answer your question in a long form, yes, I've had opportunities. I've thought about it, but being a softball coach at Florida is just a better position for me than being a baseball coach somewhere else.
Coach, what are you doing with your girls now? Do you have Zoom meetings? I did see where they replayed the one of the national championship games. Maybe it was on SEC Network the other night. And didn't y'all have like a big Zoom meeting of some of the girls on that team? Yeah,
so that was something really cool. We had the 2014 national championship game was replayed, our win versus Alabama for our first title in 14. And I got a text message from Kelsey Stewart, and I got a text message from Katie Medina, Kathleen Dewire now, who's a mom, and Brendan is her son. And so they all Zoomed me in, and I'll tell you what, we had 14 players, myself and three former, and our other coaches, our other assistant coaches. It was a heck of a time. I mean, I'll tell you what, I felt like I was back in 2015 with most of those girls, Hannah Rogers and Bailey Castro and so many more. It was such a fun experience to replay the game. I'll tell you what, I've never seen the game. I mean, you know me, Shane. I'm not really somebody who's going to, go back to that old stuff. And I didn't realize how bad of a coach I was to even pitch some of the people I was pitching in that game. What I mean by that is if I listened to the announcers, it must have been my first day on the job where I didn't even know what the heck I was doing. It was crazy to me to listen to them. I mean, they were back. They can't believe Tim Walton's pitching her. And it was crazy to me to listen. The thing that they didn't know that I'm not going to share with them all the details, but Hannah Rogers pitched a great game for us in the Monday night national championship first game. And I tried to pitch her back to back so many times against Alabama to win a title, to win the SEC. And they crushed her the second time through. And it just was a no-brainer to me that Lauren Hager was going to get the nod in game 2. And I'm listening to tell them, well, Hannah only threw 82 pitches last night and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, it was so funny to me to watch that with your players and listen to it. And I was so nervous in the first inning. I'm watching the game and I'm like, oh shoot, we won this game. What are you nervous for, dummy? What are you doing? And it was I tell you what, I would much rather be in the dugout than watch that on TV. It was hard for me to watch because you have no control of the game. But being back with our former players, it was so much fun to hear them share their memories and moments, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
Well, you got the last laugh by pitching Hager there. So, Coach, tell me now. The NCAA has allowed some of these seniors, if they choose to come back. I've seen on Twitter where some of your girls, some of your seniors are coming back. A couple are forgoing their senior year. Talk a little bit about that and how you're going to juggle the numbers with your incoming freshmen that you've already signed.
Yeah. So, and going back to your question a little bit, right now we meet with our players every week except for the period of time that we can't meet because of final exams and all the other stuff, but we meet with our players every week, and we've really been informative, and we've done some team things where the girls get to share what they're doing, and we're going to do another thing after finals are over next week. The NCAA has given us an interesting period of time where we now have from May 2nd till May 31st, 8 hours of non-athletic, countable athletic related activity, which means we can sit there on the phone and talk to our players. We can talk old stuff. We can futuristically talk about, our plays that we run and other stuff. So it's given, football programs and other fall programs an opportunity to get a leg up and really work with their teams. But so we have 6 seniors this past year. Jordan Roberts and Sophia Reynoso have decided not to return back to the University of Florida. Jordan just graduated. She'll finish up here in a couple days. Sophia also graduated, and Sophia's going to Cal State Fullerton. And they have a master's program for athletic training, which we do not offer at Florida anymore. And otherwise, she would be back. Sophia would be a Gator again, but we don't have that program for her. She's already been accepted. And it's an opportunity that I told her, you can't turn this down. You got to go do it. It's what you want to do. It's in your home state. And, are you going to have that opportunity if you wait one more year? We were stressing out about you getting in the first time. So let's not worry about it. Let's just go do it. And so she's doing that. Jordan's going to move on and do other things. And she's going to probably end up coaching at some point in time. But the other four are coming back: Kendall Lindemann, Jade Caraway, Katie Chronister, and Jamie Hoover. So, yeah, four starters back, except for Katie Chronister. She's obviously a relief pitcher for us. But having those three backs, I mean, it's going to change the depth. It's going to change roles. It's going to change responsibilities for our young players. But I think balancing the budget, balancing the numbers, we're still waiting on what the NCAA is going to do with, roster size and what the SEC is going to do with roster size, because just because you gave everybody another year back, now we still have a limitation of 20 players in postseason and only 22 can dress for SEC games. So what's the SEC, what's the NCAA going to do? We're still waiting for those, for those responses. But the thing I can say is that I can tell you right now, going back to Larry's question about wanting to coach baseball or other things, I can't tell you how fortunate I am to be a Florida Gator softball coach or a Florida Gator coach in general. Scott Strickland is amazing. President Fox, Greg Sankey. I sent Greg Sankey a message and said, listen, Greg, you need to run for public office. You are amazing. You make me feel so good about what I do, and you give me peace of mind. And Greg's been really good through this process, and people are having to do things they've never had to do before and respond to things they've never had to respond to before. And so being a Florida Gator, I'm very, very lucky to be here, because there are a lot of people that are, in very, very difficult positions and difficult situations in their job and their life. And, mine has been really, really good and fortunate to be around such great people like Scott and others.
Coach, last question for you. Your son, Brooks Walton, is a pitcher at Santa Fe Community College for Johnny Wiggs. Are those kids allowed to get another year back in junior college? I'm not familiar if it's for all NCAA or just Division I, but junior college kids get another year?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Shane, because there was a lot of, conversation, because not only do I recruit athletes from high school, but we also go down the junior college ranks and, recruiting. And so what they've done, the NCAA has done, is they've done a blanket waiver. So that blanket waiver is for all freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. They're all, when the time is right. So like for all my seniors, they will apply for their blanket waiver now. My juniors, sophomores, freshmen, when the time's right. So my son Brooks has, had some opportunities to go play and go, there was a lot of Division I schools that were starting to show interest and really coming out to watch him pitch. And, his stats proved that. I mean, he had some really good stats, and his team was really good, had a nice group of players on his team. And so he had some offers, and some of them wanted him to commit now virtually, do a virtual campus tour and do some other things. And so he has actually been given an opportunity to come back as well, just like all the other NCAA athletes, all Division I, II, and III, spring sports. So he's decided that even though he's going to earn his AA degree or he's decided he's going to come back and hopefully, get better with Johnny Wiggs. And Johnny Wiggs' staff will be fully loaded again next year. And Conrad Flynn, I think, is coming back from a year before. So it's a really good opportunity for Brooks to get better at baseball. He's got his academics where he wants them to be, and he just needs to get a little bit better at baseball so he has a better opportunity, whether it be, moving on athletically in Division I baseball or Division II baseball, whatever, or even pro ball. So he's going to come back and play one more year.
Well, good luck, Coach. We can't wait to see the girls back out there, hopefully next spring. You and Sam and the kids, y'all stay safe, and we really do appreciate you joining the program today. Yeah,
I have a call in for you, Shane. I think that now that the NCAA has made an adjustment to the numbers that athletes can wear, you can only have, I don't know if it's one or two numbers on each side of the ball. What's young Luke Matthews, number 9, with the mullet on the sidelines? What number is he going to be donning next year? Is he going to change his number? Is he going to be in the same number? And more importantly, what kind of haircuts is he going to showcase next year?
Well, what's interesting is I'm sure he'll still be number 9. If he can convince Coach Mullen to keep that number. But he shaved the mullet off. but on Twitter, one of his favorite country singers, Morgan Wallen, retweeted something about his mullet. So now he's growing it back out.
Nice. Good. But you got to have the priorities for those young kids. It's important.
No doubt about it. Coach, y'all be safe, and really do appreciate you joining the program today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on, Shane. Go Gators.
All right. That's head softball coach Tim Walton joining us. When we come back after the break, we'll be joined by former Gator offensive lineman Shannon Snell. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Coldstone Creamery, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown!
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. I want to thank Tim Walton for joining the program. Hey, folks, Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Palmetto Moon, Skechers, Starbucks, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, Select Shades, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators come to celebrate. We're now going to go back to the Titan MR hotline, and we're going to be joined by former Gator Shannon Snell. Shannon, good morning. Welcome to the program. How are you, bud?
Good morning, buddy. How you doing? Good
Doing
morning,
great.
buddy. How you doing?
We're doing great. I hope you and your family are safe. So let's go back to several years ago. You're an All-American offensive lineman coming out of Hillsborough High School there in the Tampa area. What made you become a Gator? Who recruited you, and what other schools were you interested in possibly going to?
So the funny thing about that was I was actually going to go to Florida State. I was being my final five. It came down to Georgia, Florida, Notre Dame, Southern California, and and UCLA. The funny thing is I hadn't heard a lot of interest from Florida early on in that recruiting process. And I kind of wondered why, because I was being recruited by everybody. But it was, I didn't know. I didn't get a lot of letters from them or anything. So I was just kind of confused because, I was always a Gator. Growing up in Tampa, it was a Gator hotbed, and that was my team, but I was just kind of disappointed. So I remember getting a visit from Coach Buddy Tevens. That was my recruiting coordinator. He came down to Tampa to watch me. And after practice, we got to talking. He said, "Oh man, we just never heard back from you." I said, "Coach, I've never gotten a letter from you guys." He's like, "Shannon, I've sent you a letter every single day I've been on staff." And I said, "What?" So come to find out, he actually was sending the letter. They had the wrong address, and they were sending the letters to the wrong place. So automatically, like that day, I was like totally relieved, because I was like, man, I felt kind of slighted. So, but in my junior year, I had committed to Florida State, which I had backed up that pledge. and kind of they automatically were out of the mix. And then I was basically a Gator from day one. I just never told anybody, but I felt kind of obligated to have my visits or to set up my visits. So, but I was pretty much committed to the University of Florida since, when I first talked to him.
When you look at your career, unfortunately you had, well, not unfortunately, but, Coach Spurrier and his staff left. He went to the NFL. You had a coaching change. Talk a little bit about the similarities and differences between the Spurrier coach teams compared to the Zook teams. Talk a little bit about that.
I came to the University of Florida to play for the Gators and to play for Coach Spurrier. Like I said, I watched him all throughout the 90s. I was, I remember the Sugar Bowl in 96 like the back of my hand, and I was excited to play for that man. When he first came into my house in Tampa, and he talked to us, and I was so excited. I was, it was my dream to play for him and the University of Florida. I never really thought ahead of time that he might leave. I thought he would always be at Florida. I thought he would always, that would be his kind of, finishing spot in his career. But unfortunately, fortunately for him and unfortunately for me, he wanted to move on, and, he had a great opportunity with the Washington Redskins. So that, I was happy for him in that aspect. But, those teams that I played for with him, he was, the offenses were just so explosive, and, it was a great time. I wasn't really used to losing. I didn't lose that much in high school. So it really automatically just, it was fun when I got there. We didn't lose too many games. I think we lost 3 my freshman year, and my next year we lost 2. So it was, and we were beating teams by like large margins. Like we were, the teams that we were supposed to beat, we beat. The teams that, unfortunately we lost a couple of games, but those games were so close, it just didn't make any, it was kind of an abnormality that we would lose those games. So when he left, and, when that time came that he moved on, it was a very confusing time. I did not know who Ron Zook was. I mean, to be honest, I know he was at Florida for a short period of time, and he had done some stuff there as defense coordinator and stuff like that. But I didn't know who he was. And if I could, everybody asked me about Zook and what kind of person he was. He and I didn't always get along. We sometimes clashed, but he had everybody's best interest in mind. I think he really inherited a really tough job stepping in after Steve. I really do. I don't think anybody could really, not too many people wanted that job because, you're living in the legend's footsteps, and that's just every move that you make is going to be scrutinized by media and by, your peers and everybody else. So I think he stepped into a situation. I think he did the best he could. At the end of the day, I do think he was a little bit over his head because he obviously won some games he probably shouldn't have, and he lost some games he probably shouldn't have. But I think it was a good kind of stepping block for him, going to Illinois and, doing what he did there. But, Zook, he did the best he could. But, overall, my time at Florida was very interesting. I got to see the best of both worlds of a guy that was very laid back and a guy that was very high strung. But, it was one of those things that I can't say enough about Coach Spurrier and Coach Zook. I got to say he really did the best job he could under the circumstances.
We're speaking with Shannon Snell, former Gator, number 75. You can follow him on Twitter at TheBigBossSS. We got a text here on the Titan MRI text line. That number is 352-353-7465. It comes from Jonathan in Tampa. He wants to know, it's kind of a two-part question. Was there one particular defensive lineman or defense that you hated playing against while at Florida?
Absolutely, 100%. If anybody can go back to that 2001 Tennessee game, John Chivas, for their defensive coordinator, we were supposed to play Tennessee early in the season, and they had kind of a vanilla defense. And now he was very known as their defensive coordinator, as sending a lot of crazy blitzes, but he did a fantastic job of confusing us when we played them that late in the season. He had defensive linemen walking around. He had linebackers on the line. He had safeties walking up. I mean, his job was to confuse people and to get to the quarterback, and that's what they did. That was, we were trying to make in-game adjustments on how to pick up blitzes, and this guy was just pulling them out. He was pulling them out of everywhere. So that was a really tough game for us as an offensive line, a tough game for us as an offense. And I think they just did a fantastic job scheming us up.
Speaking of that year, I mean, a lot of people that follow Gator football don't realize how good that 2001 team was. And as you mentioned, I believe if Florida plays that game at the regular scheduled time, they run Tennessee out of the building. Talk a little bit about that 01 team, with Rex at quarterback, Jabbar, Richelle, those guys, how good that team really was.
It's really funny because going into the season, I think we all realized coming off of 2000 when we lost to Miami in the Sugar Bowl, how good we could actually be. We were bringing back a lot of guys. And when I say a lot of guys, I mean, there was, we lost Gerard Warren, we lost Kenyatta Walker. Those guys were first rounders, but you had Max Starks who kind of stepped into Kenyatta's space. And then, you had some guys on the defensive line that nobody else really left. So you had all the playmakers in Jabbar and Riche and Taylor Jacobs. All those guys came back. So in another year in a Spurrier-led offense is very lethal. We were preseason ranked number one, and for good reason, because there was just so much talent across the board. And even back in 2000 when Spurrier had recruited the number one recruiting class with my class. So you had a lot of guys. You had a lot of guys that were able to kind of step in and play their sophomore season or their redshirt freshman year, not to mention all these senior-led starters and juniors. And, so walking into the season, the expectation was how we were going to do big things. I mean, that's just kind of what it was. It wasn't a surprise that even that year we put up a lot of points. I mean, it was very easy to put up points because everybody was very well versed on what Spurrier was doing and how we wanted to attack defenses and how we wanted to attack offenses. So it was actually very encouraging and very, even in preseason camp, we made the pledge that, hey, obviously one of our goals as we made them up every year was to win the SEC. And I didn't see that as that was a very realistic goal to us just because, I mean, we were that good. And going throughout the year, you could see, now we had a hiccup versus Auburn. I mean, that Auburn game was very weird. It was 7:45 at night, and it was, I remember that kick from their kicker that just split that upright. I mean, it was a very weird game. But every other game during that season, we pretty much handled whoever we played. Even going to Jacksonville, I think we beat Georgia 24-10, and I remember we crushed Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt normally plays Florida pretty tough. But we crushed Vanderbilt and put up 73 points on them. And then obviously going to LSU, who was the eventual SEC champion that year, and beating them, and they're on house like 44-15 or whatever it was. So, that team was destined for greatness. Obviously, the matchup that year should have been Florida versus Miami in the Rose Bowl. That was what we were looking forward to because obviously that Miami team that year was heralded as one of the best teams of all time. But I do think that 2001 Florida team would have gave them a great run for their money. It would have been one of those games that, people would have been talking about for a long time.
We're speaking with former Gator offensive lineman Shannon Snell. We got another text here on the Titan MR text line from Tom. He wants to know, how dirty is the play and the trash talking in the trenches?
It really depends on the matchup. Those games, some of these games aren't as bad as people think, especially in the trenches. I've not gotten into too many confrontations or anything under a pile or anything, but when you play a team like Florida State or you play a rivalry game against like a Miami, things get a little bit chippy. Things get a little bit, dirtier. You want to finish blocks better. There's things that happen. I remember when we were playing Miami in 2003 and Chris had like threw an interception or something. I got hit square in my back by Vince Wilford. I remember talking crap that week because, I literally thought we were going to win that game. And I'm sure that kind of came back to bite me in the butt. He blasted me in the back. And, there's a lot of misconceptions about what goes on under a pile. The referees do a really good job about some of that stuff and making sure people come out injury free, but not every game's like that. There's some guys that you just look forward to playing against and finishing them and kind of beating them up all game. And as a physical offensive lineman, like I tried to be, I was one of those guys that would rub your face in the dirt, that would do things to get under your skin to try to incite you to do something or to try to get you off your game. That's just part of the game. Some of those guys can handle it really well. Some of them just really can't.
Shannon, talk about, I don't think a lot of people realize the relationship, the bonds that offensive linemen have with one another because, y'all don't get a whole lot of the glory. You don't get your name in the paper unless you give up a sack or something like that.
Right.
But just talk about the bond you had with the linemen and your teammates there when you were at Florida.
We are, and my dad used to say it really well. We're five blocking as one. And no other position on the field does the one guy depend on the other guy next to him as much as an offensive lineman. One guy on a unit can mess something up and it's a loss of play. The offensive line plays bad, or one guy could have a really bad game and then the offensive line as a collective group has a bad game. It's really important. And I've seen great offensive linemen. I played with them over the course of my football career. Some of them have been really good, but it doesn't mean the unit was really great. I look back at once again, you go back to the 2001 Miami Hurricane offensive line. Those guys, they were really good. Some guys like Bryant McKinney and Brett Rummer, some of those guys were really good, but you had a couple guys on that line that weren't as good as them, but they were great as a unit. They were great as a unit because they were around each other for most of their careers together. Not to mention they hung out together. Those were guys that, if you know what your guy's going to do next to you, or if you guys got ideas or you guys are in sync, then obviously the unit plays better. And that's really important because, like I said, if one guy's off, if your center's not having a great day, he affects everybody on the line with his calls. He affects everybody around him with his play. And like I said, one guy can make a whole unit look bad, and that's not any more true than it is with the offensive line.
Our Gator great today, Shannon Snell, here from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We got another text on the Titan MR text line. That number is 352-353-7465. Jonathan wants to know, tell us about this nickname you have called Showstopper.
Okay. I was a big old wrestling buff in high school, pretty much all throughout my life. WWE, WWF, what it used to be called, and they had a guy called, obviously the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Well, he had this kind of nickname that he called himself the Showstopper. I was always like one of those guys that was kind of like a showman, and even though I lived the life of an offensive lineman, I really didn't care if anybody called my name. It was one of those things the guys in my high school started calling me because I would, every time I would get a pancake block, my coach would say, "Man, show stopping." So, as it kind of went along and I was watching wrestling, a guy called himself the Showstopper. I was like, wow, that's pretty funny. So back in high school, we had this tradition where we would like make these shirts throughout the year, or make these shirts at the beginning of the year and wear them on game days. Well, all of us had a nickname on the back of our shirt. And of course, mine ended up, I guess, the team just decided, I actually didn't put my name in for what I wanted. So I guess the team got together and said, this is what his name is going to be. And they put the Showstopper on there. And it really kind of just carried throughout the rest of time when I was in high school and in college. So
that's good stuff. NFL draft just happened last week, Shannon. Yeah. You were an unrestricted free agent that wasn't drafted. I was the same way. Talk a little bit about your experience with the Cowboys and the Jaguars, being a free agent that wasn't drafted, how difficult that is to hang around.
It's tough, and you know what? Here's the best news about this, and this is for a lot of guys that are undrafted and that are trying to catch on to a team, is that every year you'll find a guy, and especially this year with no workouts being, you can't have private workouts, and a lot of guys not getting to go to pro day. All these scouts can base it off of is your game tape and what you did at the NFL Combine if you were invited. So there was a lot of guys that probably should have been drafted that didn't get drafted, and there were some guys that were drafted that shouldn't have been drafted. The good news is that these guys still have an opportunity. A lot of teams or coaches call you in to camp, call you in and say, hey, look, they offer you an opportunity as an undrafted free agent. The good news about that is you actually get to pick the team that you want to go to. You can do your research. You can go through and say, hey, look, this team is like kind of lacking on offensive linemen, or, this team needs a third quarterback, or, I see an opportunity on special teams with this team. So that's a really good situation to be in if you don't get drafted in the first couple of rounds. So you have an opportunity to check that out. But, basically when you get in as an undrafted free agent, you got to do everything you can to stick around, whether that's playing special teams, whether that's, being on scout teams, whether that's, you got to go 100% of the time. You don't have the luxury of being a first round pick and having 3 years to develop and to, they take their time with you. They invest a lot of money into you, so they don't want to cut you right away. As an undrafted free agent, you don't have that time. You have basically, you go day to day, and you got to prove every single day that, you're worthy of being in the NFL. for me, I was able to stick around for, a couple years on some practice squads and some stuff like that. And it was tough. Every day, I would get down on myself, and I would, look at the next guy and say, man, I'm better than this guy. Unfortunately, I didn't do everything I was supposed to do, whether in the testing phase or when I was in college to be in the spot that person wanted to be in. But, it shouldn't be it wasn't one of those things that I wanted to get my butt on my shoulders, or I just wanted to, bitch and whine and complain about it. It was one of those things that I had to literally fight every single day. And it wasn't something I was used to, because in high school, I was kind of like a star. And in college, I was an All-American. When I got to that level where it was the best of the best, it was literally every day was a fight. And I think it really kind of showed a little bit of character and showed me what I was really made of, because, one day you're cut and then the next day another team you up. So, for those that think it's, a glamorous life, or you hop on, even if you're undrafted, you're not guaranteed a spot. Matter of fact, if you're a first round pick, sometimes you're not even guaranteed a spot. Then you still have to fight. But as an undrafted guy, you got to fight a little bit more. And that's really important for, those guys that are kind of trying to catch on to a team, especially now.
No doubt. It's a cutthroat business. Well, let's fast forward now, and we're speaking with Shannon Snell. You can follow him on Twitter, which he's very active on Twitter at the Big Boss SS, the Grill Master over at Sonny's.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about how you got involved with Sonny's and what's going on over at the good old barbecue, Sonny's Barbecue.
Well, I got involved with Sonny's almost 13 years ago. After I got out of the pros, had to look for something to do, because it wasn't, all the money I made wasn't going to last me very long. So, the barbecue career kind of came along because I'm a barbecue guy. I love barbecue. My grandfather used to cook it. I always used to be interested in cooking. I just didn't know what aspect that was. Sonny came along. So Floyd Sonny Tillman, he's an active Gator booster. He loves the Gators. I mean, he started Sonny's in 1968 in Gainesville over on Waldo Road. And we used to eat at that location when we used to come through Gainesville. So he was a big Gator guy, so I can respect him. I met him years and years ago, and he was as big a fan of me as I was of him. So that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool thing. But it was, kind of like a match made in heaven. I met somebody through somebody, and I ended up joining Sonny's as one of their managers in their manager program. Almost 13 years ago. It was one of the best moves I made. They're good people. The people I work for, it was with Sonny's Corporate, who our main company is based out of Maitland, Florida. Over the course of the last couple of years, we changed over to a franchise, and we were bought out by the guys in Ocala, Chip Dixon and Ken Kirkpatrick, and which is I Serve Barbecue. So it's a really cool name, I Serve Barbecue. But they're great people. And it's one of those things. My title now is Pitmaster and Brand Ambassador. I think a lot of people have recognized over the years that I'm pretty good with people, and I cook some pretty good barbecue. So they actually decided to say, Shannon, we like what you do on that front, and we want you, out there talking to people, hanging out with the Gators, doing that kind of stuff. Not to mention, following up on our brand standards and all that good stuff. So. It is one of the things I love to do. And if anybody has ever, gone on my Twitter page, or if anybody's ever seen me around, they realize that barbecue's fun for me. And Sonny's really does a great job of promoting, goodness among people and kindness among people. And, it's one of those companies that I actually believe in. Here's the funny thing is, with the NFL, I could have kept playing football. I really could have. But I decided not to, because it just became a business. As you know, Shane, it just becomes a business after a while, and it kind of sucks. And you're like, at some point you get done with it. Well, I've been with Sonny's, for 13 years. So it's definitely a company I believe in. I believe in I believe in our mission statement. I believe in all of our values. So, once again, it started in Gainesville, and they've done a great job for the last 52 years, promoting themselves and doing a great job of being a long-standing chain.
We got another text here for you, Shannon. It comes from John. He says, Shannon and his wife led the Heart Ball charity recently here in Gainesville. On behalf of our Gainesville community, we want to thank you for all that you did. That came from Johon.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
John.
absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Good. Oh yeah, my son has a heart condition. He had open heart surgery when he was younger. So we were kind of honored that they asked us to do that. To run the Heart Ball. we wanted to raise awareness for the American Heart Association. So hopefully we did that, but it was a great honor for them to ask us to do that.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you're doing a lot of good stuff in the community, and I know you've been tweeting during these hard times that you're doing a little drive-by barbecue where people see you tweet, you just drop off some good old Sonny's barbecue on their doorstep, right?
That is exactly right. It was one of those things that came about, and it was something I was thinking about doing all along. It's just, sometimes the daily grind catches up with you. Well, I see you every time you cut on the news nowadays, and they're talking about deaths and how this COVID-19 stuff is really affecting people. And, I worry about that because there's elderly people at home, single mothers at home, people that just don't want to leave their house. There's, people that worry about, spreading stuff. And, some people are, they're not furloughed and they have to go to work and, have to earn a salary. And, part of my job or part of who I am or what my dad and my mom raised me to be is, to help people. And what better way to do it with barbecue? I think God gave me a really big He gave me a big platform with football that I really probably never capitalized on 100%. And I think it's this is like a way for me to help people. That's ultimately what it's about. And, at the end of, when it's all said and done for Shannon Snell and he walks off this earth, my life is going to be in a review somewhere. God's going to review my life and he's going to be like, hey, what did you do? For me, I wanted to be a small sample size, a small sample of kindness. And I want people to actually pass it forward that, there's things that you do to help people. It doesn't need to be all about yourself. It doesn't need to be all about, hey, what's for me? Helping people is, if people pass that kind of stuff forward, then we become not only much better people, I think we become a much better a place on earth.
Yeah, that's a great message there. Hey, Coach Mullen, and it's going into year 3. We don't know when we're going to play, but give me your thoughts on how he's turned this program around.
Now, how about this guy? I mean, year 1, I don't think really anybody expected him to do what he did. I know I didn't. I was like, I was hoping for maybe something 8-5 or, something along those lines that he comes in, he's got to input his system. He's got to get his guys in there. But, to take it to the Peach Bowl and to do what he did, man, that was just super impressive. And to do it with guys that he didn't even know. He basically came in January, had a spring, had fall camp, and then got these guys ready to play and only lost 3 games. I know a lot of us kind of complained about the games that he lost, and we lost to Georgia, yada, 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 but 10-3 for a first-year coach and a New Year's Six Bowl, man, that was awesome. And then to expound on that, to compound on that, year 2, he goes 11-2, and he wins another good New Year's Six Bowl game. Like this, I think this year will be pretty much a measuring stick for him. Now, there's going to be an asterisk because he missed out on a spring practice. He loses a couple of guys off the defense that were probably, C.J. Henderson first round, John Grenard. You lose some guys that really helped you. But I think he's in a really good spot because he's got some guys in his program led by Kyle Trask, who should have been there all along, but led by Kyle Trask, and he's got some horses in his stable as far as playmakers go. I think it really breaks down to how the offensive line plays out. But I think that, Stone Forsythe, I think he's great. Brett Heggie, I think he has a chance to be really, really good. He's a couple years removed from that ACL surgery, but he's got some guys that will make some plays and some guys that will, protect the quarterback and even open up some running lanes. And even on defense, I think he has some guys. The one kid that came in from Georgia, I think he's going to be really good as a buck linebacker, a rush linebacker. So he's got some horses in the stable. It's really, can they put it together without spring ball not being available? I think spring ball is really important. That's one of the most important times of the year for a team because it gives them the chance to iron out a bunch of stuff. And then, if something happens, it gives them the off season to actually heal up and to get things right. But walking in the fall ball, I think and walking into this year, I think the expectation is he should be top 3. He should be in the college football playoff. I think he's that good as a play caller. And I think the defense will be maybe even better with Marco Wilson, even having another year after his surgery. But at the end of the day, I think this will be a proving year. He's going to have to go to the playoffs, and ultimately he's got to beat Georgia to get there. And I think he'll do it this year.
Last thing for you, Shannon. I try to ask all the former players that played for the HBC if they got a good story. Got a good story for old Spurrier?
I got one. So as I was talking when he came to my house, So I wasn't really sold on Florida. I love Florida. Florida was really in my top 5, but I wasn't sold on them. And I wanted to be a Gator, but Coach Spurrier and Coach Stevens came to my house. He came to my house, and him and Coach Spurrier were going to meet together. So Coach Stevens got there first. I'm pretty sure Coach Stevens got there first. He pulled up first, and I was kind of confused that I was like, hey man, where's Coach Spurrier? I thought he was coming. I mean, it was my first obvious opportunity to meet him. And so he's like, oh no, Coach decided to drive in a different car. So I said, okay, cool. So we're sitting there talking. We're in the living room talking, and the doorbell rings. So Coach Spurrier comes walking in. He has on like this tan blazer or whatever. He's kind of looking around. He doesn't even say hello to us. He's like, oh, he's just kind of looking around. He's like, wow, this is a really nice house. And I was like, man, I appreciate it, Coach. I appreciate it. So he sits down, and we start talking. And he's not really saying anything. Coach Stevens is obviously, laying the groundwork and saying, hey, we really want you, want you to come up for a visit, yada, yada, yada. And I said, well, that's great, Coach. And Coach Spurrier is like, oh, he's like, let me just tell you. He's like, you can play for the Gators, I know you're thinking about a bunch of other things. You can play for the Gators. And then again, you may not. He's like, you can come here. The only thing I'm going to guarantee you is you might get a degree with us. But that's all I'm going to guarantee. I'm not going to guarantee any playing time or anything. But I'm just going to tell you this: if you go to one of those other schools and you play and you play the Gators, we're probably going to kick your butt. And I'm looking at my mom, and my mom's looking at me, and he's like, look, I'm just telling you, I'm not guaranteeing any playing time. Like, you can come here, you might not. I really don't care. So I'm sitting there, and I don't know if this is like some sort of reverse psychology trick. And I've heard this story from numerous guys that were in my same class, and guys that came before me. They said Spurrier came in and said, look, I don't care if you come, but if you don't come, we're probably going to kick your butt if you play us. At that point in time, I was like, man, I think I want to be a Gator. I don't know what this is about. My mom was looking at me like, this is really what you want to do? I was like, I really like this guy. So that was my Coach Spurrier story.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Hey, real quick, what's your favorite item on the menu at Sonny's? And are y'all scheduled to open up on Monday?
We haven't gotten. We have to get approval from our corporate offices, so we have not been. Right now we're open for takeout, and we're open for curbside and online ordering. So that hasn't stopped. That's been going on. We haven't closed that up. But as far as in-house, I know we're in phase 1, which would say we will be allowed 25% occupancy, but that has not been cleared yet. But we're anxiously waiting on that. And my favorite item, bar none, on the Sonny's menu is 100% ribs. It is a St. Louis rib.
Well, that's good stuff. Well, Shannon, man, hey, we appreciate you joining the program today. You and your family stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
Buddy, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. That's Shannon Snell. You can follow him on Twitter at @TheBigBossSS. That's good stuff there. I love hearing these stories from the offensive linemen because, they don't get a whole lot of love. Usually they don't score touchdowns or what have you. But good stuff. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small business need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. To learn more, visit centerstatebank.com. Center State Bank, member FDIC. On tomorrow's program, it's going to be a good one. We got the old specialists back when I played, Judd Davis, former place kicker, and Shane Edge, the old punter. They'll have some great Spurrier stories. The specialists are different dudes, man. They goof around at practice, so they'll have some great stories that you will definitely want to tune in for. Again, I want to thank Coach Tim Walton, Gator head coach of the Gator softball team, for joining us, and of course, the big boss, SS, Shannon Snell, for joining the program. That's going to be a wrap for today's program. Be safe out there, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.